Hello there. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for joining us for this live webinar on behalf of the TEFL Org. My name is Carl. I'm a course tutor here at the TEFL Org. I help people to become TEFL teachers. So maybe that's the sort of thing you want to do in the future, or maybe you're already an English as a foreign language tutor. If so, you're in the right place. For the next sort of hour or so, I'm doing a live webinar where I'm going to talk about job interviews and TEFL job interviews in particular. But this is live, so please do let us know where you're watching from in the world. I'm here in Northern Ireland, where I work as an online teacher. I work as a teacher trainer. I'm an English examiner. I also have worked in places such as China, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Japan, Spain, Italy, as well as in the UK. I've also run schools, so I have been on both sides of the interview process in terms of answering the questions and asking the questions. So please do let us know where you are. And if you do have any questions at all about teaching English as a foreign language, please do put it in the chat. If you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, they all come through to me on the screen. The earlier you get your questions in, the more likely it is I have to answer them, because sometimes we don't have enough time to answer all the questions. Let's see who's around. We've got Naina in Birmingham. Hello, Naina. Maritha, I hope I've said that right, in South Africa. I lived in Cape Town for a bit, Maritha. I love that place. David is in Lincolnshire. I've not lived in Lincolnshire. Sorry, David. Bridget, sorry, is in Germany. Hi, Bridget. Alicia's in Toronto. I hope it's not too cold. I had a good time in Toronto once, many years ago. Please do let the hellos carry on, because it is nice to see where people are from. Also, if you have any experience at all of TEFL interviews, put that in the chat. If you can think of any questions people asked, any tips you have, please do put that in the chat. Right, okay, let's get I've got a little presentation to go along this. Hopefully it's not going to be too presentation-y, lecture-y for you, but hopefully you'll learn a few things from it. Right, so first of all, what happens in a TEFL interview? So it's not wildly different, not obviously, sort of each industry has different types of interviews, but the sort of things that you might find online about how to generally approach job interviews works well in TEFL interviews as well. And different companies, though, have different sort of stages to the interview and what you need to do in the interview. There's not one thing that happens in every single TEFL interview, apart from probably like the general questions, and I'll talk about some of the things in a second that I've either asked people to do or I have been asked to do in a TEFL interview. What I would also say is that quite often the things you have to do for an online TEFL job are very similar to the things you have to do for a face-to-face TEFL job. The type of tasks you might be set beforehand, or the type of questions you get asked. Okay, so, and different companies, you might find one company in China that tells you to do this and another company in China tells you to do that. Okay, so, it's not a similar thing across all companies. Some of the things I have been asked to do, or I've asked someone else to do, is right. So I think this is probably the most common thing to get asked to do in a TEFL interview, and very often you get you don't get these like put upon you as a surprise. So these are tasks that are sent to you via email, maybe a week, 2 weeks, however many weeks before you actually do your interview. Saying that, I have been unfortunately asked, like 2 or 3 questions into a nice gentle interview, been asked to just think on my feet, how would you teach this? That's quite tricky. I don't really see the point of a company doing that, to be honest. More really to sort of trip you up. But these are some of the tasks that I've been asked. That was only once or twice in my 20 years of TEFL. Right, so most common thing is prepare a lesson plan for a level. So it might be something like prepare a elementary lesson plan for writing, for present continuous, for weather vocabulary, whatever it might be. Okay, you write the lesson plan, you send it into them, and then during the interview you present the lesson plan. You sort of talk through the different stages of the lesson plan. You say how you would start, how would you finish, all that kind of thing. All right, that's quite common. Then sometimes you have to do a dummy lesson interview. So it says, so they will say to you in the task that you get sent beforehand, something like, you will deliver a pre-intermediate grammar lesson in your interview. And you have to actually do that for 10, 15 minutes, however long it is, and sometimes it's to the people who are asking you the questions. Sometimes they get a couple of people from the office and they get them to sit in front of it. So it's different people from asking the questions. Sometimes they've even wheeled out a couple of kids and you have to do the lesson to a couple of kids. Hopefully they will tell you this in your pre-interview email that you get, but be prepared for anything. Sometimes I've been asked to make a presentation a bit like this about a group of students. So, you might say, okay, I'm going to do a presentation about intermediate business English students. And then you talk a bit about what they would learn, the skills, what might be on a little syllabus, something like that. Not to lots of detail, or like nationality, or what happens with Chinese students, for example. This is something I've been asked. Then after that, you get traditional interview questions, and I'm going to talk about those interview questions I've been asked, or interview questions I have asked, in a bit, and I'll tell you a bit about some of the answers that I think are generally not bad ones to give. Okay, right. There are usually 2 people in a TEFL interview, not always, but usually. I've had one-on-one interviews. I've had 3-on-1 interviews. I've never had more than 3 people asking me questions, but usually very common to have 2 people asking the questions. One is usually a TEFL expert. Now, what do I mean by TEFL expert? I mean someone that works for the company you're applying for, who's been teaching there a while, or is a senior teacher who might do the things like the observations, could be a director of studies. Generally is someone that has been teaching there for a while and hopefully knows what they are talking about. Then usually the other person is a local member of admin staff. So that could be someone like from the HR department. That could be someone, I've even had like the accountant interviewing me. Now they will ask you TEFL questions, but it's just a good interviewing technique is to have 2 people, so you get a balanced opinion, and also so one person can ask the questions while another one listens and writes down notes, all that kind of thing. Very often the admin staff person might ask you questions that involve things like getting the visa, getting the passport, getting your passport ready, certificates ready, all that kind of thing. Saying that, sometimes I've just had 2 TEFL people ask me questions and nothing at all to do with admin stuff. Okay. The TEFL expert can also be a local member of staff. Chinese doesn't necessarily have to be a person whose first language is English. For face-to-face or for online jobs, the interview is via video, via Zoom, via Skype, something like that. So even if it's a face-to-face job, make sure you have an okay background behind you. Make sure that you're dressed quite formally, even if, like me, this is your spare bedroom. Make sure that hopefully there's not too many distractions in the background, that they can see your face and all that kind of thing. Because even if it's a face-to-face job, they still want to seal that to make sure you're professional. But also they want to make sure, if you're doing an online job, what your background looks like to the students. And they ask you to do the task actually live in the interview. So yes, prepare a lesson plan, but actually get to talk about it as well in the questions come after you've done the task. Okay. Please do keep these questions. I can already see 4 fantastic questions. Please do get them in. Right. A good company will give you guidance beforehand on what is going to happen in the interview. They'll tell you how long it is. They might even tell you who the interview is with. They will tell you what the task is that you have to do. I've also done TEFL interviews where they've not given me a task. It's just gone straight into some questions. 20 minutes later, that's that. Okay. All right. So if they ask you to prepare a lesson, now I would say, first of all, I'm not going to spend a long time on preparing lesson plans. I've done webinars where I talk specifically about how to prepare lessons. If you do one of our 120-hour courses, you already know all this kind of thing. But really important, even if it's like a 10-minute practice lesson with a couple of people in an interview, you've got to have a goal for that in mind. So it shouldn't just be, let's have a little chat. It shouldn't be, right, do you know what we're going to do? We're just going to read something. Have a goal in mind, use some vocabulary, correct some pronunciation, do some writing, a simple grammar point that you're going to be able to practice and do. Keep that goal in mind. Try and get through it in 15 minutes. Don't try and do anything, because if you think it's always a 15-minute lesson, how am I going to fit all in? I'm going to try this thing that I've never done before. Keep it quite simple. So instead of teaching sort of 10 words, maybe teach 2 or 3 words, something like that. Instead of teaching the negative, the positive, the question form of a grammar point, maybe just concentrate on the negative, something like that. Don't try and do some sort of mad technique that you don't really know about that you might get wrong. Keep it very simple. The plan you send has to be easy to read. It also has to be quite easy to present. So if they actually ask you to do the lesson, you've got to be able to follow the lesson plan that you sent them. They've got to be able to read the lesson plan and follow it. If you just have to talk through the lesson plan, not actually do the lesson, but just explain your lesson plan a bit, the stages you've got to be easy to talk about. The stages have got to be quite, clear, and you've got to be able to sort of say why you would do something, why you are doing this. So if you have to explain why you've got a warmer, explain why you've got to have a wire warmer and why you've chosen this warmer. If you've chosen some writing practice at the end, explain why it is some writing practice that you've done. Okay. Keep the students in mind when you're preparing. Keep the students in mind when if you are actually doing the lesson. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's got to, a good student lesson has certain aspects in. I'm going to talk on the next slide. You've got to keep them in your lesson plan. You've got to be able to show them inside that. And some of the key words I would put in my lesson plan would be things like group work, students discussing, practicing this, or error correction here. Look for error correction. Show the people who are interviewing you that you know that these things are important in a lesson, and show the people in your interview that you know you're going to get this into your lesson. All right. Right. So you've got to deliver the dummy lesson. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. They should let you know. Right. They are looking for you to know the basics of teaching. Now, if you're going for higher level jobs, if you go for senior teacher jobs, director of studies jobs, then you got to move beyond this. But for people new to the industry, when people are interviewing teachers and they just want you to be able to show in the interview that you know the basics, you know the stages of a lesson, you know what students need to do, all that kind of thing. Show that you know the simple stage of a lesson. So show that you know a warmer. Show that you know to present some grammar. Show that you know you've got to do a bit of control practice. Show that you've got to do, that they've got to do some free practice if you're going down that route. Okay. Do this in the dummy lesson. Also put this in your lesson plan. What do these letters mean? Right. So TS means the teacher speaking to the students. SS means the students talking to the students. That is when a teacher is not speaking. That is when a teacher is going around and monitoring. That is when a teacher is going around and just listening for errors. That's when the teacher's going around listening for students that have gone off topic, that kind of thing. ST, that's when the students then talk. So you might set them a question and you might explain the question. That's TS. The SS is 2 students, or maybe 4 students if you're doing a group, or even 3 if you've got an odd number. The students talking to each other to complete the task. Then they've completed that, then they feed it back to you. They give you the answers. You check the answers in the ST. Okay. Low teacher talking time, high student talking time. That means that at times the teacher is quiet while the students are talking a lot. A good lesson is quite a loud, chatty lesson generally. And get some of this into your dummy lesson. So, if you've got a student there, 2 students that you're doing it to, get them to talk to each other. Get them to practice with each other. If you've only got one, you know, get them to speak to you. Say, okay, right, I'll give you a minute to look at this, or half a minute to think about this. Then just talk to me what you think the answers are. Get the student talking. If you do, take an opportunity to correct them, but don't correct everything, especially pronunciation. And why I say don't correct everything is because if they're really low level, you might spend a long time within your 10 minutes practice within the interview, correcting pronunciation, correcting grammar, correcting vocabulary. If you can think of a very simple pronunciation error they've made, see if you can get them to do it, to repair it. I've done webinars talking about error correction. Might be worth thinking. Students love their pronunciation to be corrected. They do. What are they listening for in particular? They are listening for your instructions. Can you explain clearly what to do? That's important. They're checking your pronunciation. Do you speak with a neutral accent? Now, if you're from London, like me, you might have a very London accent, but which might not go down well in the classroom. You might need to change your voice for the interview, and they are checking that. If you are a non-native speaker, maybe they're checking to see if your level of English is clear and can be understood in the interview, in the dummy lesson. Now, if you are asked to do a kids dummy lesson, if you're applying for a job where you're going to be teaching kids, this is crazy, but sometimes you have to do a young learner's lesson to adults. So they've asked you to prepare a young learner's lesson. You're ready to talk about the young learner's lesson. You're ready to teach the young learner's lesson in the interview. All of a sudden, they wheel out a couple of 30-year-olds. So sometimes you have to do it to adults. Be prepared for this. If they couldn't find any kids or they didn't want to do it to any kids, even if you know you're going to do it to adults, do it like you're teaching kids. Keep it simple lessons. Don't just think, right, do you know what? Actually, it's a kids lesson they've asked me to prepare, but these are adults, so we're going to talk about this. No, keep to the themes of the age range of the kids that you're going to be teaching. Age range is important because what you would teach and how you would teach 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds is different from how you would teach 13, 14, 15-year-olds, but they're all called young learners. Ask the age range, pitch your lesson to that age range. Your personality is key here. They're looking for you to be nice and friendly. They are not really, although it is lovely, they're not really expecting to have the best teacher they've ever had in the world and to really learn all there is to learn about grammar within that 15, 20 minutes. What they're looking for is a nice person, really, on the whole, especially to kids classes. And I've learned from experience, don't worry too much about their facial expressions. Now, you might be being interviewed by people that have spent the last 4 or 5 hours interviewing. You might be interviewed by some people that are really nervous and shy if they're doing it for the dummy lesson. If they have a face of stone, don't worry about it. Of course, you'd love them to be smiling and nodding along and stuff like that, but quite often they don't in interviews. So just don't worry too much. Don't let that bring you down. Be negative, stay positive, stay friendly, stay nice. Thank you for these questions. I'm really looking forward to getting to these questions. David, Carol, Jonathan, Sue, David again, Naina, Adela, I'm going to answer your questions. I promise you in a minute. Right. So one of the most common questions I get asked a lot in interviews is, why do you want this job? I mean, this is pretty much a standard thing about in any industry you go into, right? The answer to this is always involves the students. If you're going for a face-to-face job and that face-to-face job is on a beach in Thailand, do not say, oh, do you know what? I quite like eating Thai food on a beach, and that's why I want this job. No. I really like Thai students. I think that they're really, really friendly. They're quite chatty. I've read about them and they are quite nice to the teachers. They're quite respectful teacher. And I really look forward to being able to improve them and get them to where they need to be. Students is always the answer to this job, even if you don't really agree. Even if the actual reason you want the job is to go and sit on a beach in Thailand, or the real reason you want to teach online is because you don't really want to move from your house and you want to stay teaching online, the answer is always the students. talk a little bit, if you can, about the culture of the country, but avoid generalizations. So if you are applying for a job in China, don't sort of go down the route of talking about, oh, I want to go and see Chinese people in rice fields. Don't do that. The answer is, I find the culture of China towards education to be quite refreshing. I feel like the students in China are quite nice and respectful, and it's a growing economy, and I want to be part of that. Something like that. Don't go down the cliched route. You can't really go wrong with, I really enjoy helping students to improve. If you can get that and then twist it to the circumstances you're going for, that is generally the way. Another thing, tell us about your teaching experience. And this, for someone that's been teaching 20 years, can be fantastic. Newly qualified teachers, this can be quite difficult, but you've really got to have an answer beyond, actually, do you know what? This will be my first teaching job. You've got to be prepared for this kind of thing. What they are really looking for, if you've been teaching at all, is they want to know the levels you've taught, the ages of the students you've taught, and the types of class you're teaching. So, if you have taught pre-intermediate for a year, fantastic. If you've taught 7-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and 70-year-olds, fantastic. If you've taught business English, academic English, exam English, whatever it is, they are looking to hear about that. Now, if you don't have any experience, talk about your qualification and what you learned. So, do you know what? This will be my first teaching job. Don't try and lie, really, because they'll see through that. So this will be my first teaching job. This is what I learned on my course, and I want to put that into practice by teaching your students. If you don't have any, if you feel like you need to have a bit more meat to that answer, then maybe think about doing one of our add-on practical modules that we offer here at the TEFL Org. If you go to our website, TEFL.org, you would hopefully find something about that there. Now, if you don't have much experience or hardly any, see if you have any experience in your previous jobs of training people. So you could say, look, do you know what? I don't have any EFL experience, but I did spend 3 or 4 years training people how to do sales. I spent 3 or 4 years training people how to do marketing, whatever it might be. Or, do you know, I don't have any TEFL experience, but I actually have worked with youth clubs. I've helped to take children on birthday parties, something like that. Show that you've got experience working with kids, because very often these jobs involve teaching kids. Right, here are some example interview questions. Now, I've been asked this before, and this is kind of a trick question. Do you have a favorite textbook? And I have a favorite textbook, but I never admit to having a favorite textbook. And the reason why I admit to not having the favorite textbook is, one, textbooks get out of date, and the ones that I like to use might be seen as old. 2, there is no perfect textbook, because a good teacher must always be supplementing textbooks or making up their own lessons. 3, if you say, yes, this is my favorite textbook, and they don't use it, that could work against you. So the sort of answer you give there is, yeah, do you know what? I've worked with a few different textbooks. I don't find any of them to be absolutely perfect. I enjoy making my own lessons or supplementing my own lessons. Can you work to set lesson plans? And the answer to this is yes, I can do it. But I usually find that if I have to help my students to do something, I can make an activity about this. I can add in activities. But I also know that for timing, I might need to just use the set lesson plans. How do you keep control of a group of students? So how you would keep control of a group of 5-year-olds might be different from 15-year-olds, would hopefully be different from 50-year-olds. And, you can talk through some techniques if you use scoring charts, class rules, whatever it might be. But that tends to be, there'll be lots of things saying online about different ways to find one that suits you. Now, do I have a favorite lesson? And you can say, yeah, I have a favorite lesson, but really what I like to use a lot in my class is a music. I quite like using reading materials. I quite like finding interesting listening clips, something like that. It's good to have a favorite lesson, but just sort of show that you can move beyond it. Now, if they do ask about it, then yeah, fair enough. Go if they want more details about that one actual lesson. But you know, they're really sort of there trying to show that you wanting to see that you have a bit of flexibility. How do you prepare materials? So some jobs give you all your materials. Some jobs don't give you any materials. If you're newly qualified, I'd go for jobs where you do get a bit of materials because it can take a while. Now, how do you prepare materials? You first of all, you say, oh, well, I think about my training. I keep to the stages of a lesson. I try and find real world reading text, real world listening text. If it's kids' lessons, I try to prepare fun games, that kind of thing. Remember the group of students you're going to be teaching. Classic one, this. How would you get a group of Chinese, Italian, Spanish, Korean adults to talk more? What would be your techniques? And you would say things like that, group tasks, going around talking to them one-on-one, not so much students talking out loud in front of the rest of the class, making sure within a class that you get round to everyone. You could even say giving points for good effort levels, that kind of thing within the class. Also just being nice, being friendly, that sort of thing. Tell us about your experience working with children. Again, they're looking for EFL experience, but if not, you can talk about that. You could even, if you've got none, you could go down the route of talking about your little cousins or your nephews or your nieces or something like that, and what you do with them, how you play games with them. What levels are your favorite? So again, I have a favorite. I like teaching upper intermediate adults. I've always liked teaching upper intermediate adults. However, I know that in an interview, I want to be able to show my flexibility. So you can say, yeah, do you know what? I tend to like teaching higher level adults. But I have also found that I enjoy teaching low level kids, and then blah, 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 blah. This one you might have to do a bit of research about, but what's the difference between teaching young learners and business English students? You talk about things like formality, the tasks you put, the source materials you would use, the games you would do, the way that you present yourself, all that kind of thing. Lots of things you can talk about there. All right. Thank you. Right. Let me close that now. Thank you. Sorry, I should have said Alan is monitoring the chat. Thank you, Alan, for doing that for me. So let's get to your first question, please. Any questions, do put them in the chat there. Hi, Adela. You're watching from Slovakia. Hi. Probably cold there as well, I reckon. You have a TEFL certificate and also a degree in English. You'd be interested in summer job. Right. Lovely. So I actually did a webinar about summer jobs, Adela. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago, or even last week. I can't really remember when it was. Where are you? You're on Facebook. Right. Scroll through these posts on Facebook and you will see a video where I talk about summer jobs. Now is a good time to be looking for summer jobs. It's February. Yes, summer seems a long time away, but there are loads of summer jobs. Now, there are different types of summer jobs around the world. A lot of summer jobs in Ireland, a lot of summer jobs in the UK, lots of summer jobs in Malta. They're probably the main 3 places in Europe where there's lots of summer work. There's also some summer work in other countries. Now, 2 ways to find the work, really. You can look on websites like ours, TEFL.org, which has job listings on. Another good one is TEFL.com. That has lots of UK and Ireland listings on. The other way is to contact schools directly. So this is especially true in mainland Europe because they might not be advertising for summer schools, but schools in Spain might want teachers to come and work their summer courses, for example. So yes, there's plenty of summer work, but really, Adela, go back and have a look at the webinar that I did talking specifically about summer work. It was definitely in January sometime. So go back and have a look. Have a look on our YouTube page, mainly. Naina, this is a good one. Are there any recorded TEFL interviews that we can watch? I don't think we have any, Alan, ourselves, do we? I don't think so. on our website, Alan's can probably send me a little message around the back. It'll come up on my screen. I don't know if there are any YouTube channels. You've given me an idea to maybe do something. There are any YouTube channels showing specific TEFL interviews. That Alan says we don't have any. I don't know. I'm not sure there's any recorded ones really. Naina, if anyone else can help Naina, go for it. But please put it in the chat. But I don't know any off the top of my head. Naina, sorry. Good idea though. Should we do something like that? I could interview Alan. David, hi. You've worked in other industries prior to looking into TEFL. Do you ever have companies who never respond to your application? Oh yeah. Right. So yes, is a short answer. Also, you get companies advertising and they say they need people now. You don't then hear from them for like 4, 5, 6 months. Do not take it personally. That's the first thing I would say. Companies quite often, especially companies that are looking for people to work in summer jobs, they're never really sure how many students they're going to get. So they tend to have lots of people on record. And then as the student numbers go up, they then, they list David's application is better than Carl's. Okay, we'll phone David first. David's got the job. Great. We'll keep Carl on file, but we won't tell Carl in case we get more students come in, that sort of thing. So yes, unfortunately you do, David. You can chase them, but I think I applied for a job with a very, very well-known company known throughout the world last September. I've never heard anything back from. I thought I was a shoo-in for the job, David. I emailed them in January and I said, hi, just wondering. And they were like, yeah, we still haven't made a decision whether we actually want to go ahead with this person. So they actually, with this role. So they advertised it, did all that. Still January, 4 or 5 months later, they've got no idea whether they actually want to interview people. It's annoying, David. I'm sorry. Next question is a really good question. Yes, David, they are looking for your charisma. Now, you don't have to be George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah. You just got to be nice and you've got to be friendly and you got to be a bit smiley, but not like, I can't really move my lips anymore because I've been smiling so much. But, they are looking for you just to be a nice general person. So if someone makes an error, you don't go, oh, that's a stupid error. You're looking, well, do you know what? That's a good attempt, but what we're looking for is something else. Can you think of this? Or, oh, do you know what? Really good way of pronouncing you got there, but let's try it again. Can you repeat this? They're looking for you to be nice. Really simple, David. And I've taught people that look I've interviewed people that look so scared in the interview that they can't really come across and their pronunciation goes, or they speak so quickly that you can't really understand what they're saying. They just, breathe, be nice, be friendly. Yeah. They want to have a good interview. Yeah. Their ability to plan lesson plan is important, but if you've got a qualification, such as one of ours, that should hopefully show that you can plan a lesson. Good luck, David. Sue, hi. You've been accepted for 2 summer schools. All right, no need to show off, Sue. But not had any face-to-face teaching experience. You do teach online. Should I be scared? No. Summer schools are great fun. I started off teaching in a summer school in Swansea many, many years ago, and it's still one of my favorite experiences. The students are there to have fun generally and to just take in a bit of, I'm guessing you're in the UK, Sue, but a bit of UK culture or something like that. No need to be scared. You usually very often with these summer schools get a few days training beforehand, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours of training beforehand. A good one does anyway, where they explain to you, they give you time to plan. Very often with summer schools, you get people coming back again and again and again who are willing to help you, that kind of thing. You will love it, Sue. Jonathan, now that you're a teacher, does that sound good? I hope it does. I wish you had paid more attention to handwriting student. I'm going to tell you a story about this. What do you advise to do? Is it okay to bring this up to students as a reason to work hard at their penmanship? Right. So students, first of all, let's talk about students before I tell about my little story. Now, obviously, there are countries where they don't use the Latin script. So I'm talking sort of countries such as Korea, China, Japan, Arabic to a less but certain extent. A lot of Arabic students have really bad handwriting, actually. Can I think of any more off the top of my head? I mean, no, not really. So, you know, Thai, Cambodian, maybe Southeast Asian. Right. I have had adults with bad handwriting. There are loads of stuff online, improve your handwriting. So there's like sheets that you can download and print where they're like tracing the letters. I've done that with students. Absolutely fine. Yes, if they're going to do something like an IELTS test or a Trinity test or something like that, they will probably have to write at some point. If the examiner can't read what they're going to say, they're going to basically fail. So yes, that is important. However, saying that, a lot of exams can be taken on a keyboard nowadays. It's less important than it used to be. But I think it is important. On my very first day of teacher training, I did face-to-face teacher training. This was not long before, but the internet was quite early days. So there was not really any online courses like we offer now. So I had to do it face-to-face at a place. I stood at this whiteboard and I drew someone on the whiteboard and I said, okay, guys, do that. And all the students looked at me like I was mad. None of them could read my handwriting at all. I am something called dysgraphic. That means I'm dyslexic in my handwriting. I'm fine generally. If you ask me how to spell a word, I can say it. But if you ask me how to write a word, I sometimes get it wrong. Something wrong up here in my brain. Anyway, there was another primary school teacher and she was a lovely lady. Her name was Rianne. I remember now. I hardly ever speak to her now, but there we go. And she said to me, she was also doing the teacher training course. She said to me, you write your letters completely and totally wrong, how they shouldn't be written. And she went and got a book for me. And she's like, do this, do this, do this. And I sat there and the trainer said to me, you've got to improve your handwriting or I'm going to fail you by the end of the week. So I did that. And yeah, and that's what. Final thing I want to say is a lot of countries nowadays that you go and teach in, or especially if you're online, you don't have this problem. They allow you to type onto a interactive whiteboard or to projector. So it is less of a problem than it used to be, but definitely if you can't read the students' work, then it's an issue. Hope that answers your question, Jonathan. Carol, that's an interesting one. Have they done this? Right. There are loads of groups online, Facebook groups, Reddit groups. I don't know about LinkedIn because I'm not really a LinkedIn expert, but there are loads of groups online where there are students wanting to improve their English. Now, if you've got a job and they say to you, you've got to do this, lovely. I would go onto these Facebook groups, such as, Learn English Facebook. You type that into Facebook, you'll find loads of groups. I would say, hello, my name's Carol. I'm a teacher. I'm looking to do a free general English lesson to B2 students to be recorded. Does anybody want this free lesson? You will get hundreds of people replying, hands up. Yes, I'm interested. I'm interested. I'm interested. I'm interested. I'm interested. People just write, I'm interested, don't they? Or PM me. You will find people like that. So then you can then do it online, hopefully. If it can't be done online and you need to find a local student, has to be sat here next to you, go to a local university or go to a local FE college, further education college near you, and put up some posters or ask the teachers there. I bet you they would help you out. Good luck, Carol. I've not heard that one before. I've seen live lessons, but not actually asked to be recorded one. David, hi. This old chestnut. Okay. So for anyone that doesn't know, received pronunciation is supposedly the correct way to speak English, where you don't put any sort of accent into your English. Quite often used to be sort of seen as the language of the British royal family. Right. The best way to pronounce, before I get into this properly, you will see jobs that asks for American or North American teachers, so Canadian American only, because quite often this happens for sort of some jobs in China, Japan, and Korea, because students from those countries are going to go study in America and they feel like they need to understand American English. So they will apply, they will want teachers that talk with an American English or Canadian English accent to teach them. So hopefully the students then take on that accent. Whether that happens or not, I don't know what the research says, but I'm skeptical. I have never taught in received pronunciation. I have a teacher's voice. This is a bit like my teacher's voice. I probably speak more quickly now than I would do in a lesson. I would slow down a bit. I would make sure my accent is quite clear. And this accent is very different from how I talk to my friends and my family. A teacher's voice is important. You don't need to put on some sort of fake accent. You've just got to really make sure that you have a teacher's voice. And that tends to be slower. That tends to be less up and down and, less colloquial language and stuff like that. Okay, stuff and aspects like that. You don't need to teach one or the other. Okay. Adela, yes, go to Malta. Sue, YouTube have recorded. If you look at everybody, someone else do this webinar next week, not me. Naina, hi. Another question. You teach online volunteering at the moment with Ukrainian couple. Lovely. 100%, especially if this is post-qualification, Naina. You've loads of stuff to talk about there in an interview. But so quite often companies, so you do your 120-hour qualification, and while you're doing that, or after you've got your qualification, that experience tends to be seen as more valuable than the experience before you do your 120-hour qualification. I'm not saying they would discount it if it's before, but it's seen as more valuable afterwards. Why? Because if I had no teaching experience, no teaching qualifications, and I just jumped into teaching people, I might not be the best teacher. However, if I'm a qualified teacher, I know how to be a good teacher, hopefully, then I start teaching, those lessons will be better. But yes, Naina, put that on your CV, put that and talk about that in the interview. Good luck. Lovely thing to be doing. Hi, Mike. How are you? You're about to start level 5. Fantastic. You have teaching experience then. You have more experience there, even though it's 20 years ago, than a lot of people that do courses with us. Look, I always recommend a bit of volunteering. I enjoy it when I do it. You're really helping people that do need to learn English. It's good to put on your CV. It's good to talk about any interview. Look, is it compulsory? No. Does it help? Yes. You will find jobs in Cambodia teaching young learners. You will. But without this experience. With the experience, you feel more confident. You're a better teacher. And you've helped some people, and you can put that on your CV, that kind of thing, Mike. But quite often you don't necessarily need it. Does that answer your question, Mike? Good. Yes, Sue. Exactly something I said the other week. Companies ask for more than they actually want, than they actually need. So companies will say things like native speakers only, experienced teachers only, degree only. Now, with the degree thing, there are countries, if you're going to go work abroad, there are countries where you need to have a degree in order to get the work visa. But a lot of the times they say what they want as extra, and you don't need to have it. If you see a job out there that you want to, and you think you can do it, you can do it, but you don't have that one line that they're asking for, go for it. Go for it. My first ever job was with a university. My first job abroad, was with a university in Vietnam. I did not have everything that they wanted in terms of levels of experience. I went for it. They interviewed me and they took me on, and that was one of my favorite jobs that I've ever done as a TEFL teacher. I'm so glad I went for it, even though I did not have every single thing that they wanted me to have. Okay. Yes, Naina, exactly. Listen to Sue. Sue is today's hero. Thank you, everybody. I think that's it. And yes, thank you, everyone. Everybody said thank you as well there. Look, don't be scared of a TEFL interview. A TEFL interview is as much about just being nice and being friendly. That is such a big part of teaching. Is being able to show that you're a nice person, not being able to show that you know 45 different verb tenses and you know 48 different ways of teaching writing. You know, it's not about all that sort of thing. It's about really, are you a nice person? Are your students going to like you? Because if your students can like you, yeah, of course you've got to have some knowledge of all the basics and everything, because if your students do like you, it gets you quite far in the classroom. They are they're willing to overlook you not quite knowing every aspect of the present perfect, you know. Listen, thank you very much. If you've got any other questions, please put them in the chat. We also have a Facebook group where you can put questions in them. If you type in TEFL Org students and graduates, you join that. Myself and Alan monitor that. We answer the questions, and other members of staff at TEFL Org and other people around the world who just want to talk about TEFL. Have a good rest of the day wherever you are in the world. Thank you.